Something happened this week in Washington, D.C. that changes the entire XRP timeline, and I am going to be honest with you, most of the coverage you are reading right now is getting the sequence completely wrong. Today we are sitting at $1.42 on XRP, and the question I keep getting is, why is nothing moving? We have regulatory wins. We have ETF inflows above $1.5 billion. We have Ripple Prime live on the DTC National Securities Clearing Corporation, and the price is down roughly 40% since January. I am not going to pretend that does not sting, but what I want to do in this video is give you the actual framework for what has to happen next, because there is a specific sequence of events unfolding in the Senate right now. And if you understand it clearly, you will stop asking why nothing is happening and start seeing exactly where the ignition is. Let me be real with you up front. This is not a hype video. I am not going to tell you XRP is going to $5 next month, because I do not know that, and neither does anyone else. What I can do is walk you through the data that is actually on the table right now and let you decide what it means. So let me start with the piece that matters most this week, because the legislative timeline just shifted in a major way and the market has not fully priced it in yet. Senator Cynthia Lummis confirmed this week that the Senate Banking Committee has scheduled the CLARITY Act markup for the second half of April. Now, I want to make sure you understand why that specific word matters. Markup means the committee is going to formally review the bill, debate amendments, and put members on record with votes. This is not a press conference. This is not a hearing. This is the committee actually moving toward a vote. And Senator Tim Scott, who chairs that committee, told reporters at the DC Blockchain Summit that big momentum is finally on his side. He used the word big. He said he expects a draft compromise proposal on the remaining stablecoin yield issue by the end of this week. That stablecoin yield question, whether dollar-pegged tokens can pay interest like rewards to holders, has been the single sticking point blocking this bill for months. Now, here is the part that most people are glossing over. Senator Bernie Moreno did not mince words. He said publicly that if the CLARITY Act does not advance by May, it may not receive serious consideration again for years. He was not speaking hypothetically. He was describing the midterm election dynamic that is about to consume the entire legislative calendar. Once senators shift into campaign mode in the summer, you are fighting for floor time against completely different priorities. The window is April to late May. That is it. That is your window. So what does the passage path actually look like from here? After a banking committee markup in late April, the bill goes to a full Senate floor vote. Because of the 60-vote cloture threshold, the bill needs bipartisan support to avoid a filibuster. Right now, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has called for significant revisions to attract Democratic votes, and her concerns about crypto ethics restrictions related to senior government officials genuinely unresolved. This is not a small thing. TD Cowen analysts warned this week that the bill faces real headwinds as the midterm dynamic intensifies. So when I see 72% Polymarket odds and Brad Garlinghouse at 80 to 90%, I take those seriously, but I also take the risk seriously. This is not a done deal. What I believe is that Tim Scott is not going to schedule a markup vote unless he has a credible path to the votes. He got burned in January when the bill fell apart. He is not going to go on record again without a plan. Hit subscribe if you want the kind of XRP coverage that gives you the actual framework instead of just the headline. I break this down every single day. Now let me connect this to the price action, because this is the cognitive dissonance the entire XRP community is living in right now. The price is trading between $1.35 and $1.60. It has been doing that for weeks. Meanwhile, on-chain data shows 1.3 billion XRP was accumulated by large wallets in a single 48-hour window earlier this month. 7 spot XRP ETFs are now live in the United States with over $1.5 billion in cumulative assets under management. The XRPL just hit its highest ever daily transaction count, closing in on 3 million per day, and yet the price cannot hold above $1.60. It touched that level on March 23rd and got immediately rejected. Here is the honest explanation for that. And this is what the source video I analyzed for today got partially right but did not finish. The resistance at $1.58 to $1.60 represents a massive zone where approximately 2 billion XRP was accumulated during the 2025 rally. Every holder who bought in that zone is watching for a chance to break even. Until you have enough buying pressure to absorb all of that supply, you are not breaking through. And right now, weekly ETF inflows are running at roughly $1.9 million per week. To create a genuine supply squeeze, you would need somewhere between 20 and 40 million per week in sustained ETF buying. That is the actual number. We are not there yet. So the trade range makes complete sense when you look at it through the supply lens. But here is what the bears are missing, and this is the more important takeaway. Since October of last year, exchange reserves had been declining. That trend recently reversed, with an estimated 472 million XRP flowing into exchanges during a single week in late February. That sounds bearish. It would be bearish in isolation, but at the same time, the Evernorth SPAC is filing to become the largest publicly traded XRP treasury company with backing from SBI Holdings and Pantera Capital. That is a completely different institutional vehicle opening up parallel to the ETF channel. What you are watching is a distribution and accumulation happening simultaneously at different levels of the market. Retail distribution meeting institutional accumulation. That is not a bearish pattern, that is a compression pattern. Like this video, if this data is clarifying something that the headlines have been muddying for you, let us see how many of us are looking at this the same way. Now let me tell you what I am actually watching for over the next few weeks, because there are two specific announcements that I believe will move this price, and you want to be positioned before both of them. The first is Tim Scott formally announcing the markup vote schedule. Not a possibility, not a confirmation that stablecoin talks are going well, an actual scheduled date. The moment that announcement lands, you are going to see a short squeeze in this market. There are still significant short positions betting on XRP going lower. A clear legislative catalyst removes the primary bearish argument. I am expecting a move back toward $1.60 immediately and potentially a run at $2 in the days following that announcement, if the market reads it as genuine momentum. The second catalyst is the March 27th ETF approval deadline. Multiple analysts are projecting up to $8 billion in institutional inflows if the remaining spot ETF approvals are granted, including products from Grayscale, 21 Shares, Bitwise, Canary Capital, WisdomTree, and CoinShares. On March 17th, regulators formally classified XRP as a digital commodity under CFTC oversight, removing the last major compliance barrier that kept institutional allocators on the sideline. If those approvals go through this week, the inflow math changes dramatically. You would be looking at pension fund and IRA capital flowing into XRP for the first time, and the weekly inflow number could jump from under 2 million to potentially well above 20 million. That is the supply squeeze threshold. Here is my honest position on all of this, and I want to give it to you straight rather than just tell you what sounds good. I think the Clarity Act passes the Banking Committee in late April. I think the odds are better than the market is currently pricing, but I also think there is a real scenario where the bipartisan math does not add up. The bill stalls past the Memorial Day recess, and we spend the rest of 2026 waiting for the next legislative window. If that happens, the $1.35 support level is going to get tested seriously. That is the scenario the bears are positioned for, and they are not entirely wrong. What I would say to someone in that situation is, look at the on-chain data. 60% of XRP supply is held at a loss right now, but the largest wallets are accumulating. The institutional plumbing is getting built regardless of what the Senate does this month. Evernorth is going public. Ripple Prime is live on DTC. Deutsche Bank and Societe Generale have integrations live. None of that disappears if the markup gets delayed. Tell me in the comments what you think is the single biggest catalyst for XRP in the next 90 days. Is it the Clarity Act, the ETF approvals, or something else entirely. I want to see where this community actually stands. This is not financial advice. I am sharing what I personally track and what I am watching in real time. Do your own research and make decisions that match your own risk tolerance and timeline. Send this video to one person in your XRP group who keeps asking why the price is not moving yet. Show them the actual framework that is more useful than any price prediction right now. The window is real. The timeline is tight. The data is constructive even when the price does not feel like it. Join the XRP army for the weekly deep dive data reports where I go even further into the metrics, and the legislative tracking link is below. And I will see you in the next one.